Pressure mounts on Carmen Lawrence as her colleagues join the doubters. A new refugee crisis in the Balkans as fighting erupts again in Kraina. And Kevin Costner in Australia battling to keep his megabucks film afloat.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Gina Boon.
Good evening. The government has invested a lot in Carmen Lawrence. The former West Australian Premier was seen as a big potential vote winner when brought to Canberra. But under siege over the Eastern affair, support for Dr Lawrence appears to be waning. The Minister herself, though, seems determined to tough it out. Laurie Wilson reports.
A victory of sorts for Carmen Lawrence, with the Eastern Royal Commission agreeing to restrict further cross-examination of two of her former staff members until a High Court hearing into the legality of the inquiry next week. The two witnesses have seriously damaged Dr Lawrence's credibility, contradicting her version of the events, which apparently prompted the suicide of Perth lawyer Penny Easton. But despite the damning evidence, Dr Lawrence is adamant she won't be standing down as a cabinet minister while the inquiry continues.
It is a purely political exercise, and if I were to succumb to that, I think I would be disappointing a great many people, including the senior members of my own party.
But Dr Lawrence is under immense pressure. Fellow West Australian and ALP faction leader Jim McKiernan says she must defend herself against the mounting public perception she does have something to hide.
Evidence is stacking up against her, and I think at the moment there's a void and a vacuum coming from the direction of Carmen.
Dr Lawrence says she is planning to appear before the Royal Commission in time. More problems in the West too for John Howard, with another federal MP resigning from the Liberal Party to contest the next election as an independent. Earlier this year, in the furore over Noel Crichton-Brown, Paul Filing quit the Liberals when he lost pre-selection. Now Alan Rocher, one of Mr Howard's strongest supporters in the West, has followed suit. He too lost his party endorsement and says in effect he'll stand as an independent Liberal.
It will in no way detract from my support for the coalition between now and the next election, and after the next election my support for a Howard government.
John Howard says he regrets Mr Rocher's resignation, but says the endorsed Liberal candidate, Ken Court, has his strong support. Laurie Wilson reporting for Nightline.
Well, just hours after a UN-brokered ceasefire in Kraina, the deal has broken down, with renewed fighting erupting. Croatia had agreed to let Serb soldiers and civilians flee the region, but bomb attacks on a petrochemical plant in central Croatia and several towns caused the Croatians to end the truce and shell some of the few remaining Serb-held centres. Tanks from the Yugoslav army are now rolling toward Croatia in an apparent warning to the Croats not to take any more Serb territory. For now, though, Croatia is enjoying the spoils of victory, having retaken the key parts of Kraina.
After their 4-year occupation of Kraina, it took little more than a few days for the Serbs to be driven out. It was a personal triumph for the Croatian president, Franjo Tudjman, who'd overseen the rebuilding of his army and was convinced the Belgrade-based Serbian forces would not intervene. But his joy and that of Croatians now able to return to their homes is coming at enormous human cost. 200,000 Serbian refugees are now fleeing Kraina, and it's happened too quickly for the UN to be able to cope.
We might have a major humanitarian calamity waiting for us.
There's also anger at the United Nations over Croatia's tactics. Not only were UN personnel attacked, but the Croatians also reportedly used Danish peacekeepers as human shields as they advanced on Serbian lines. But the Croatians are basking in their victory, and they've been joined by their new allies, the Bosnian government army that's now broken out of the Bihać enclave. Croatian success has given them new hope in their fight against the Bosnian Serbs.
After holding the whip hand for so long, the Serbs now appear indecisive. The Belgrade government of Slobodan Milosevic left Kraina to its fate, and now there's a power struggle between the two men who led the rebel Serb assault in Bosnia.
General Mladic, who sees 70% of Bosnia and is an accused war criminal, is in open conflict with his political leader, Radovan Karadzic. Mladic has been sacked after refusing another post, but he's being backed by other generals. And many feel it's Karadzic who's the one in real trouble. Either way, it's just another reason for the Croats and Bosnia's Muslims to celebrate. Jim Whaley in Croatia, reporting for Nightline.
Police are searching for a gunman who shot dead 2 men in the Western Sydney suburb of Cabramatta in an execution-style killing. Another man was wounded in the attack, which police believe may have been sparked by a feud between local crime gangs.
The 2 men died in a hail of gunfire. The third managed to call for help. O operators heard the shots over the telephone line. The 19-year-old was taken to nearby Liverpool Hospital with a wound to the leg.
The 2 people who are deceased were discovered lying on the floor quite close to the front door of the flat.
Early indications show all the hallmarks of an execution-style killing. Police say both the dead men suffered numerous bullet wounds to the head. Detectives believe the men were shot with a small calibre weapon as they answered the door of their first-floor apartment. The killings prompted immediate raids on several nearby addresses in the hunt for suspects. Residents of the McBurney Road apartments woke up to the gunfire.
One after another very soon, and then 2 or 3 bangs, another bangs.
Police have revealed one of those killed, a 21-year-old, was cleared of 2 murder charges in 1988 and 1989. It's believed the 2 dead men were members of the notorious 5T crime gang, well known in the Cabramatta area for extortion and drug dealing. Simon Boda for Nightline.
2 Australians have died and several others were injured in a minibus crash in the United States. The group was travelling to a pony club festival when their vehicle hit a car in Lexington, Kentucky. Killed was 47-year-old Alan Hessian from Queensland. The other victim was a 15-year-old Tasmanian boy. In a legal first, a Sydney man is claiming steroid abuse led to the bashing murder of a woman in a King's Cross hotel last year. Stephen D'Souza has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of Fiona Harvey, who he bashed to death after she refused to have sex with him. 21-year-old Miss Harvey had 25 separate wounds to her head and neck. D'Souza's lawyer told the court that certain anabolic steroids used by the defendant led to brain damage. The trial continues Wednesday. An inquiry is underway after 3 lions escaped from a Warragamba animal park west of Sydney. The park's owners claim they were deliberately set free. Frightened residents had to stay in their homes as the big cats were hunted down. One was shot dead after it attacked a family dog. The other 2 were recaptured. It's been a year of embarrassments for Hollywood's biggest stars. Hugh Grant for a certain cheap act, Kevin Costner for a very expensive movie. But Costner, who's in Australia promoting Waterworld, is standing by his production, urging moviegoers to ignore the price tag and judge the film on its merits.
The future. The polar ice caps have melted, and the Earth lies beneath a watery grave.
Umpteen critics have predicted a watery grave for Kevin Costner too, courtesy his $200 million flick, Waterworld.
I can see your ideas to try to embarrass me, but I won't be embarrassed.
Not afraid of anything, men least of all.
The movie says Costner is a good one, and good adventure movies don't come cheap, but he reckons its worth shouldn't be judged on dollars alone.
Some movies are going to be little budgets, and some are going to be big, and I don't care what budget they are. I care about the story that's involved and the 2 hours in the dark that you all can enjoy.
Waterworld has topped the US box office in its first week of release. Many drawn no doubt by the controversy, others the prospect of big-budget whiz-bang stunts. Costner did nearly all his own.
I'm not trying to be over-dramatic. I haven't really been that in my career, so when I tell you it was life-threatening, it just was.
Critics reckon Waterworld bears more than a passing resemblance to Mad Max. Costner agrees there's similarities in the post-apocalyptic look.
I think the more important question is when people come out, do they have a smile on their face? Have they seen something they haven't seen before? And I think that that is Waterworld in spades.
Waterworld opens here next month. Mark Barlin for Nightline.
After the break, troop trains again heading back to our far north. And has Diana got a new man in her life? The Victorian government will get more than $1.8 billion from the sale of its first privatised energy company. That's $500 million above the expected price. The windfall is expected to accelerate the state's power sell-off. United Energy went to an American-led consortium. The Kansas City-based Utility Corp is taking just under 50%. The other partners are the AMP Society and the New South Wales Superannuation Board. Fear and ignorance have been blamed for the delay in providing much-needed services for the homeless. The claim came at the launch of a new report on the homeless by the Sydney City Mission, which says demand for its services is up 10%.
Help me if you can, I'm feeling down.
It isn't a pleasant sight. People without a home trying to survive in cities all over Australia. And it's a worsening problem. Shadow People, a report released by the Sydney City Mission today, indicates that their services are badly stretched and increasingly they're turning people away. New South Wales Minister for Community Services, Ron Dyer, says the community can't ignore the problem.
Community attitudes, based in many cases upon fear and ignorance, already have worked against the provision of homelessness services.
He says building projects have been delayed and even prevented due to a lack of understanding. Mr Dyer has urged people not to blame the homeless because they often aren't responsible for their plight.
They fail to see them as fellow citizens who in many cases have children and who are in critical need of assistance to help them return to the independent living patterns enjoyed by mainstream society.
On Friday night, the Mission holds its annual winter sleep out at the Sydney Opera House to raise money for the homeless. Fiona Pye for Nightline.
International drug authorities finally appear to be making progress against Colombia's rich and ruthless cocaine cartels. They've arrested another alleged kingpin of the Cali drug ring and hope the syndicate may soon be out of business. Nick McCallum reports.
The White House describes him as possibly the world's most wanted criminal. But Miguel Rodriguez Oruela was arrested in his underwear, hiding in a secret closet at home, offering no resistance. He ran the Cali cartel, believed to control 80% of the world's cocaine market and much of the heroin trade.
He dictates the color of the packages of the cocaine, how many pagers are bought, how many cars are leased. He was the operator of this huge worldwide net.
Yo captura a Miguel Ángel Rodríguez Orejuela.
In announcing the arrest, Colombian police boasted they've now crippled the Cali network. Including Oruela's brother Gilberto, they've now arrested 6 of the cartel's 7 leaders in just 2 months. But the drug lords have recruited Mexican replacements.
My suspicion is these groups from Mexico will be the next groups that will try to take over the narcotics traffic.
This arrest comes as the Colombian president battles allegations that he accepted a $6 million campaign donation from Oruela. But today, the drug lord denied it. The president, he said, is an honest man. In the United States, Nick McCallum for Nightline.
Israeli police were forced to close Jerusalem's Temple Mount after violent clashes at the site, holy to both Jews and Arabs, yesterday. Scuffles broke out after Israeli extremists tried to defy a ban on Jewish prayer meetings. Tourists are allowed to visit the compound, but police keep out Jews who want to pray there to try to avoid trouble. The temple has since been reopened. England's rugby captain Will Carling is threatening legal action over reports he's formed a special relationship with the Princess of Wales. Carling is said to have installed a special telephone to take Diana's calls, and she's reported to have given him her private telephone numbers. Carling claims she's nothing more than an acquaintance and that his wife and rugby come first. 50 years ago, young soldiers and nurses climbed aboard trains that took them on the journey of a lifetime. But this was no holiday. These trains took them to war, where they lost their mates and their innocence. Now one of those trains is recreating that journey, heading off today from Brisbane for Townsville.
Old songs and old uniforms helped set the scene, so too the Premier, ably assisted by one veteran long since turned politician.
I'm coming on the train here, but I'm not going to go all the whole way. I can't stand the pace.
50 years ago, that's a long time.
A sentiment shared by many of the 250 ex-servicemen and women gathered from all over Australia, just as they were when the trains from Brisbane took them to war.
Right, gang, let's get moving.
Before, we didn't know what we were going in for, now we do.
The fully restored troop train will travel to Townsville for next week's massive Victory in the Pacific celebration. With the well-wishers along the track came plenty of memories of the mates who didn't come home and of the personal fears of those who did.
I wasn't so worried about not coming home, I was worried about dying over there and my body being over there.
Well, some things never change. 50 years ago there was no grog on the train and there's no alcohol on it now. But some of these diggers tell me they make up for it in every town along the way. The train will pull into Bundaberg this evening. Also heading north, a convoy of World War II vehicles to support the diggers. The jeeps will ferry the vets around towns on the way and the ceremonies in Townsville. Michael Lyons for Nightline.
And in a moment, the Aussie diggers who kept open a vital link to the north during the dark days of World War II. On the 50th anniversary of victory in the Pacific, Australian veterans have revisited the battlefields of their youth. One group of diggers who fought their fight on Australian soil have also returned. The men of the transport battalions who drove through the outback with vital supplies for the troops in Darwin. John Collis is travelling with the veterans on their pilgrimage back to the track.
Up here, the war stays close and real. The relics yet to alchemise from junk to shrine.
Three shell in there.
Today, the distances remain as daunting, but the track is smooth and straight. Among the gnarled veterans of this forgotten front, the memories vivid of endless torture in the void.
You're shaking all the time, and the only thing you're thinking about is keeping the vehicle on the track.
You can still find parts of the old north-south road, the lifeline between Alice Springs and Darwin, in the rush to defend the north.
You should have seen the rough bits. They were crook. I'll tell you. I can imagine. Well, I think back, I don't know how we got through a lot of it. Bucket if I do.
There was a dreadful toll on machines and men. Yawning potholes hidden under bull dust, smashing bones and metal alike.
It was bad, for sure.
Trucks disintegrated, men died, shaken literally to death along the track. But get through they did. 2,000 trucks every day, shoring up the exposed nape of Australia's neck against the threatened invasion.
They done a wonderful job, those fellas. They done a wonderful job. Without them, the North was finished.
Their deeds were not acknowledged then. No medal for those based south of Katherine, and they don't see themselves as heroes now. But that doesn't mean hearts don't ache on this final journey up the track.
Around about this site, it was that John gave me a telegram.
At Barrow Creek, Alan Smith relives the anguish of learning of his mother's death.
I never ever did get home to see her buried. I just went up and down the track.
Time has practically erased all trace of what was then a bustling oasis dedicated to patching up men and machines to keep the convoys moving. But there's little left here now but ghosts and memories.
Just brings that sad feeling, comes out, and you've got to be pretty hard to take it.
And so tears fall again in the wretched dust of these fading military outposts. Banka, Elliot, Laramar, places they tried to forget but never could.
I knew in my mind that one day I would come back up here.